Okay, well, why don't we get started? Because I think, we have a lot to cover, and obviously we have two fantastic guests that have a lot to share on community building, both at, I guess, at the strategic level and even at the tactic levels as well. So I guess today's Fireside Chat will be a little bit different to the last two, where we've invited two external guests to join us. But the format will be as usual, and I guess for Diane and Vivek, as you can see, it's a relatively small group, so much more intimate, much less formal, and the idea is really for everybody to get to ask some questions about community building, and to get those answered and to give some guidance to the projects. And I think it's really interesting because I think later on we'll get everybody to introduce themselves in their project, but everybody's kind of at different stages of development. But I think nonetheless, community building is such an important thing, no matter what stage you're in. So I think, I'm looking forward to the conversation we'll have today. So what we will do is, we'll do some quick introductions, from Diane and from Vivek. We'll talk a little bit about Dodo and Gitcoin. And then, I'll kick off some, I'll ask some questions to get the discussion going. But then after that, I'll really open it to everybody so we can have a nice chat. So anyway, so without further ado, Diane, Vivek, thank you so much for making the time to join us today. It's a pleasure to have you. So maybe I'll pass on to Diane first, if you'd like to introduce yourself for those who don't know you, as well as Dodo.
Sure. Hello, guys. Nice to meet you all. You can call me Dai Dai, actually. Yeah, that's my family name, but it looks like a double stable coin. Yeah, so you can call me Dai Dai. And thank you for joining me, for inviting me here. Yeah, very glad to talk about the community building with all of you guys. Yeah, I am the co-founder and the CMO of Dodo.ex.io. So Dodo is a decentralized trading protocol for Web3, which founded in August 2020. Yeah, last year actually. Yeah, and we have been building it for more than 1 year, and luckily, so far we got some small achievements. Yeah, so Dodo provides the liquidity products and the service to traders and to liquidity creators. So if you are a trader, you can trade on Dodo and always get the best trading price on the market, and on multiple chains like Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Arbitrum, Polygon, and further we will also support Aurora of Near and the Boba network and more. Yeah, and if you are a liquidity creator, like an individual developer or a project team, you can use a series of tools that's provided by Dodo to create your token, set up your liquidity pool, to gathering liquidity and do the fundraising for your project, and even launch a liquidity mining campaign. And this is all codeless. You don't need to do the coding things around it. Just click some buttons on these tools on the Dodo platform. Yeah, and on average, there is generating 100 million trading volume on Dodo platform on all chains. Yeah, and you may see Dodo on some ranking web stats. Yeah, so on average, Dodo is the top 10 on Ethereum DEX and top 3 on Binance Smart Chain DEX, and on all the markets, basically top 20 DEX. Yeah, on all chains, on all markets. Yeah, so and for the future, we are still exploring more higher efficient liquidity solution for the DeFi world. So we'll keep building products and features around our algorithm, the proactive market making algorithm, and we are even building around like NFT fractional liquidity solution for the NFT assets to bring the DeFi solution to the NFT new assets. Yeah, so we will keep learning in the Web3 and bring high capital efficient liquidity solution for the emerging new assets in Web3. Yeah, so this is our philosophy. Yeah, and about myself, actually I graduated in 2018. Yeah, so I may be younger than most of the builders in the DeFi world, in the crypto world. Yeah, but I entered in this crypto industry in 2017. Yeah, before that, I got some internship in VC firm and tech media. Yeah, and after that, yeah, I worked on marketing stuff at a very first decentralized exchange in Asia called DDEX. Yeah, and starting from 2017 and to 2019, and I learned everything about blockchain there, and I started to write a lot of articles on financial scenarios on Ethereum. Back then, I introduced like Compound, Uniswap, DeFi, this very first DeFi protocols to the Asian audience, especially Chinese audience. Yeah, so people they think like I'm the first influencer and QL on DeFi in Chinese language. Yeah, and many people know DeFi from my articles, and I built a very first WeChat group that is called DeFi the World. Yeah, and that is in early 2019, and until now, like there are 500 people in that group, but like half of them basically now are the founders and builders of real DeFi products. Yeah, so yeah, so I'm very proud of that. I made a very early inspiration to the local people on DeFi before the word of DeFi is known by everyone. Yeah, and in early 2020, so yeah, I just you know talked with my ex-colleague in DDEX, and because in DDEX we built the order book DEX, and we learned a lot on the in the bear markets, and how the order book DEX don't really fit native blockchain. Yeah, and then we also learned like how the AMM works, and we think there is a big room to combine the advantage of order book and of the AMM. So we are trying to figure out a new, more capital efficient solution. Yeah, for the DeFi liquidity. Yeah, so we created the actually my ex-colleague created the PMM algorithm, and I think this really work, and we together build Dodo based on this algorithm. Yeah, and that's in the spring of last year. Yeah, and after that, I think people know the story. That's we did fundraising in summer, and launched the token in the hype of the DeFi trend. Yeah, and then keep building features like the classic pools, like smart router, yeah, like crowd pooling, yeah, yeah, that's basically the story. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Dai Dai, for sharing that very comprehensive intro. Both to your journey and obviously, Dodo and we'll come back in a bit and touch around the point on, I think particularly what I would love to hear later is on community building and also a bit of the differences around, doing it in China versus the West or the rest of the world. And it's a question we get a lot. But I think before we go there, I would love to now introduce Vivek and give him the opportunity to introduce himself. I think probably everybody's heard of Gitcoin, but nonetheless, if you can tell us a little bit about Gitcoin, what it's all about, and your journey there as well.
Sure. Thank you. And Dai Dai, wonderful to hear the story. Nice to meet you. Yeah, my name is Vivek. I have spent the last 3.5 years in crypto, most of which as CEO of Gitcoin, which is a platform with a mission focused on growing open source software that has transitioned into a slightly broader kind of mission at this point to sustain and fund public goods. And that has been, as the narrative in Web3 has kind of grown, we noticed in 2018 when I met Kevin at a hackathon called ETH Waterloo that there was something interesting happening in the world of Web3, where for the first time in a long time, there was funding close to open source protocols. It wasn't always going exactly to the right places. And there were parts of this new Web3 world that still were not receiving funding, things like core infrastructure, things like ETH 2.0, things at the kind of like closest layer to the bottom layer of the Web3 stack. But it was clear that at the kind of top layer of the stack, there was some type of funding mechanisms that were being explored, which everyone is aware of. And so at the time it was ICOs. It has obviously transitioned into slightly more mature versions of those funding mechanisms, but we're still on the search for what do truly communal token mechanisms look like that fund infrastructure that previously was unfundable. And the story of Gitcoin has been kind of like a long exploration of that question. It started with bounties, which was more about providing funding for builders of open source projects, contributors, and then started shifting focus with Gitcoin grants towards maintainers. So if you're a maintainer of an open source repo, how could you build a base of supporters that would allow you to work on a project full time? And then my focus personally shifted towards a different type of support for those maintainers, which was a communal support in kind of like a lived experiential sense. And that's where I've gotten to know people on this call like Nandit and Gael and Rachel and Arnav actually through a program called Kernel, which is essentially kind of like a custom-based educational community that is focused on Web3 fundamentals and deep relationship between the people that are exploring. And it uses ideas that come from Web3, like peer-to-peer technology in the construction of peer-to-peer community. And so the instinct there is that funding is a very useful and important step one to any communal endeavor, but that deep relationship is what will allow for those types of communities to flourish. So that's where my focus lies now. I spend pretty much all of my time on Kernel, and that's a bit about the Gitcoin story as well.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing that, Vivek. And I think later I'd like to touch upon a couple of points you made, and I think especially around forming those deep relationships, finding those community contributors that will come and work here full time and how to do it. Because I think that, ultimately, given the philosophy of decentralization of Web3, every project always has kind of that vision or in that decentralization vision in the roadmap. And I think a lot of times one of the many fears of moving in that direction is how do you make sure that something that you've built, yourself with your sweat and tears, if you will continue to be maintained and even improved in the future by community members. So we'd love to talk about that in a bit. But so let me go back to Dai Dai, and I think earlier, you said a few things, right? So you said that Dodo started around the middle of 2020, which isn't very long ago. Yet you've achieved a lot of great things. As you said, you're usually in the top 10 or even top 3 leaderboards, depending on which chain you're looking at, and it's great traction. I would love to hear from you, particularly as a CMO, right? What was your approach to community building? And, did you differentiate, when you were considering your, either China-based or Chinese-speaking community versus everybody else, or the West, or whatever you want to call them? Because, a question we constantly get from, projects that come through our accelerator or portfolio companies is, especially the ones that are outside of China, they're like, hey, we really want to build community in China. We don't know how. Do we do the same? Do we do something different? What do we do? So we'd love to hear from you. What did you do? What did you think worked really well to do it? And maybe what didn't work so well that you could advise the projects to avoid?
Yeah, sure. I think there's really a lot to talk on this topic, because the community is almost the most important thing for projects, right? And but I have to say that it's not that like I think as a founder, for every founder, we will all have really high requests to ourselves. Like we will always say, oh wow, this project, that project, they do so well in this aspect, in here or in there. Yeah, but I have to say, everything that I am telling today, just my experience, right? You have your own picture for your project, your base culture and your core community that will be different. Yeah, so I just provide some experience of Dodo. Yeah. But I believe in your mind, you will definitely have your preference of how build your own community. Yeah. So I think there is a advantage with the birth of Dodo, because before Dodo, almost all the Chinese crypto community developers, they know my name. Yeah. So that means when I was in DDEX, I mean the company before Dodo, actually the people, they know DeFi, basically know my name and know my articles. Yeah, so somehow I think this helped to the Dodo's first branding, because they can know Dodo easily from my own channels, right? Yeah, so maybe this is something different with other projects, but that is just an initial point. I think a very thing that we are doing right is we really build a lovely image of Dodo. I think before Dodo, most blockchain projects looks very technology, right? And very it's look like something that's a man build, right? But I think Dodo, I put something very girly and lovely things to the image, and we want to through our UI and UX to express myself and ourselves, and we want to express the image that Dodo is very friendly, and we want to make friends with you. Yeah, because genuinely, like we like this kind of lovely things, and I think many people in the crypto communities, they like these cute things. Yeah, so I think this is a very important approach, that to express a very cute and lovely image to show the attitude that we want to make friends with the community, that we are equal, and you talk to me, I talk to you, right? So, and I bring this products and service to you, that we are equal. Yeah, it's not something that I am the founder, so you are my user, you are my token holder, you listen to me, or I listen to you, but it is equal. This is very important culture that we want to express. Yeah, and another important thing is Dodo is different because originally the founders are Chinese. Actually, at first, I'm not very confident with my language. Yeah, because actually I have never been, been entered to any like Europe or US countries. Yeah, just have my life in Asian countries. Yeah, but I think after 1 year, I am become more and more confident to join this kind of meetup and meeting with English speaking guys. Yeah, so I think if someone in this panel that you somehow feel not that confident in some aspects, just don't be afraid. You got a lot of practice to present yourself and your community, and the people here is really friendly. Yeah, and you show up in these different meetings really helpful to let your community know, okay, there is a vivid person on behalf of the project. If you are not trying to hide your name actively, I think this opportunities to showing up in this kind of panel conferences is also very important. Yeah, because some of because your community will like that say the founders of the projects is pretty active and in this and in these different activities and meetups. Yeah, and another thing is I have to say at first we really did a lot of things trying to build connections with the community users that is near to us. That I mean Chinese audience, right? Because we speak the same language and same culture. And actually the VC guys, VC firms, one of the important reasons they invested in Dodo last year is they think most of the Chinese, most of the DeFi protocols are all come from Europe and US, right? But the Chinese market is so big. Really, a lot of people they trade tokens, and so somehow deeply in their heart, maybe they want to see their face in the Binance exchange, in Huobi exchange, to support some native team. Yeah, and we think we give the birth of Dodo at that timing. Yeah, so it's a timing thing, I think. Yeah, so maybe you can also think about this point, like if the background of your founders and your team. What is the important support of your native community, and that will be your seed users and your very loyal supporters. Yeah, so even though nowadays there are some regulation policies coming out from China, but the Chinese users are still very big because they know how to use VPN, they know how to use Twitter, use this forum, and use your protocols. They always get ways if they still want to do the trading. Yeah, so I think even though there is some fat on Chinese market, but I think this is a still very big market that you may take a look at it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So that is some experience on the red things that they have done. Yeah. And also another thing about the local markets. Yeah, we also build some local channels, like bi-weekly. The founders will sit in front of the camera and informally to telling about, okay, what is going on inside of the team, what are the topics that we are doing research, and what kind of events that is in our plan. Yeah, so just talk like with your friends, and they will also like to give some suggestions to you. Yeah, so I think maybe you can have like 20 people, 50 people that is very active and always like to hear from you. Yeah, and we keep this channels with this kind of core users, core fans. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, maybe you have different other questions that I can tell more. Yeah.
No, very, very interesting and very insightful. And I love the idea that, as we were building Dodo, it was this focus on, I guess, making it different, right, to what was there, right? As you said, very, kind of clearly built by developers and maybe, as you said, male developers, right? And trying to make it, cute and different and really stand out, right? I think that's quite interesting. So I want to switch gears a little bit, right? Because I think you obviously covered, community, I guess, mostly from the point of view of users, right? In your case, of a DEX, right? Which is obviously, quite important. And we do have, some projects in our cohort that are building, DeFi protocols. Others are building NFT protocols, and others are building infra. But I want to now switch gears and turn to Vivek, right? Because as we were mentioning earlier, yes, users who are going to use your product or protocol are very important, but over time, everybody's expected or has the aspiration to decentralize, and community becomes more than just the users of the product, but will become almost like the stewards of the product and the protocol going forward. And sometimes when we hear from from co-founders, they say that a big fear of decentralization is letting go and entrusting that stewardship to the community, right? And how do you do it? And it's not only developers, right? I mean, of course, developers will be a core part of that, I guess, a subset of community, but it's everything else, right? All the other skills that you would need for a protocol, designers, risk analysts, and so on and so forth. So, Vivek, would love to hear from you, in your experience, and of course, you've come across so many projects, and especially those at early stages. How should people think about, this side of the community, right? And I know that before the session today, we were exchanging messages, and you wanted to share some strategies and also even some tactical steps that projects can take to build this community. So over to you, and would love to hear from you on this.
Sure. I think Dai Dai has shared some really interesting starting points. First, in the initial introduction, just talking about some of the technical details of Dodo and the kind of technical infrastructure upon which there could be a community built. So the work on the PMM and the ways that Dodo is different, right? Like what it is that it stands for and the type of culture that it brings is definitely the starting point. And I think, Stefano, your question gets to first, how do you think about the initial stages, but also how do you transition into a state where there are stewards who are beyond the core group that is initially working on it. So I have a couple of things that I would share that might not be tactics to start. Stefano, I could share my screen, but I also could just like talk through them. I think I would need permission to do that.
Yeah, feel free, go ahead.
Okay. So the first thing will be familiar to the folks on the call that have been through kernel. It comes from the first module on kernel called trust. And trust is a word that is thrown around a lot in crypto circles, usually to describe Bitcoin and Ethereum and the more technical characteristics of trusted environments, which I think is an important backbone, right? Like when you build on Web3, you inherently are building a product that has the ability to increase trust. But one of the instincts that we have in Web3 is that these are not trustless protocols. It just defines an implicit shift, which means that you no longer have to trust who own the media, but rather trust those with whom you actually transact. So this does not imply trustless societies. This implies that trust actually goes back to the people that are engaging it. And it just so happens that our instinct is actually that you need much more trust. And that the question that you could ask is, what does a world look like with much more trust than currently exists? And there's this wonderful game that it's called The Evolution of Trust that was made in July 2017 by a guy named Nicky Case. It's a very fun game, as you can see by the images. It's quite, yeah, it's fun. It's a game. And I recommend it to everyone. It's about 20 to 30 minutes to play through, and it's a game, so it can be played in a variety of different ways. But I'll give away a bit of the kind of like learnings that you get to at the end of this game, where you have basically some introductory game theory concepts, but also the ability to kind of like explore, okay, what does the evolution of trust require? And what it looks like in these repeated games is really three things build trust. There's repeat interactions, the sense that, okay, one interaction is not going to just like lead to me never seeing this person ever again. The potential for win-win scenarios. There should be positive sum outcomes between the participants in a game. And there should be, as much as possible, low miscommunication. If miscommunication is too high, trust breaks down. And these can be like really high-minded things, but they also can be very tactical things. Okay, so the low miscommunication thing, one of the big things in crypto is like, okay, where are we going to go first? Are we going to use Discord? Are we going to use Slack? Are we going to use 10 channels? Are we going to use 5 channels? Are we going to build the Discord in a way that allows for repeat interactions? Or am I going to enter kind of like this really big pool where it's really hard for me to communicate and find others? Are we going to find ways for win-win games to be found in more interesting varieties and more high leverage varieties in our community and in our protocol? And you know, they point to one big lesson. The big lesson is that it's not to say that you know, we're only products of our environment, but that we are each other's environment, and what the game is that we play defines what players do. So a lot of talk about the metaverse recently, a lot of talk about game mechanics. Another article that we draw inspiration from a little later in Kernel is from some of the best game designers in the world, Daniel Cook, and a group of people who are kind of like researchers at this project called Lost Garden, which they call a treasure trove of readable, thoughtful essays on game design theory, art, and the business of design. Also, not crypto people. They talk about these interesting concepts. The quote that they use to frame the article is, "What should young people do with their lives today? Many things, obviously, but the most daring thing is to create stable communities in which the terrible disease of loneliness can be cured." Just interesting thing to think about beyond DeFi and beyond even the metaverse or even any of these things, right? Is, can we create communities where reliance on monetary systems and on being anywhere that does not contribute to your own positive connection could be reduced? And so they talk about a lot of things, but I usually scroll down. There's a lot of great things in there, especially for kind of like metaverse related things, but generally what is pro-social economics, which is, I think, kind of a prehistory of token economics in a lot of ways. And they talk about these pro-social values that they invite game designers to build into their games and their economies. And they talk about these 5 things: friendship, thriving individuals, altruism, the promotion of activities that involve intrinsically motivated cooperation, positive group norms, and shared goals. And these are all like really interesting things to just have in your mind if you're thinking about, okay, well, how might I get back to tactics? Which I think maybe I promised you, Stefano, but maybe I'll pause there for now and respond to your last question, which is, you know, how do you move beyond your own stewardship towards stewardship of others? And I think the reality is that the responsibility lies with the core group of maintainers for far longer than we usually say in Web3. And we should appreciate and honor that it will take long games and stewards who are willing to play them over long periods for other people to feel comfortable joining and stewarding themselves. So that should not be shied away from in the spirit of decentralization. I think it fits. I think it fits because it allows for trust to grow in a community and for more decentralized stewardship to be fostered.
Very cool. No, that was great. And I think, I mean, I liked a few things. I think one, you know, obviously, you know, we're all in crypto, we love it. And I think, you know, when we think about community, it is also very unique, right? I don't think that, you know, any non-Web3 corporation of whatever size would ever be thinking about, you know, this sort of long-term community stewardship. But I do like that, you know, also looking outside. And I think you shared the game, the trust game, and then this other article that are totally unrelated to crypto, but so much to be learned from that, right? And I also quite liked, I think in the Kernel article that you were sharing around trust and communication. And I think, you know, even touching a bit on the tactics, which is, you know, as you mentioned, like even how you organize Discord, and, you know, given that this is usually the community hub, but I think we all probably face, you know, being in so many channels, just, you know, like an avalanche of information in each one, you know, so easy to get drowned, right? And sometimes also even hard as you know, a newcomer otherwise, when you come into a large community and you don't know anyone, and then you're like trying to, you know, to even fit in there, right? And to establish yourself and to establish relationships can be, you know, quite challenging. You know, I'm conscious of time, and I think we've certainly had a great discussion, but I do want to open it up to questions from the project, because I know, and I'm sure there's quite a few. So I think yeah, would love to open it to the projects. If you can give just a quick intro of you and your project, and ask your question to either Dai Dai or Vivek or both of them. And of course, I will cold call, but I'm sure there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll try and go first.
Go for it.
So yeah, very nice to see you again, Vivek. Like, we were part of the kernel program, so like I would highly recommend this. But actually, I have a question for Diane, because we do have, like, we are building a DeFi application that wants to promote saving and like building better financial habits in a fun and engaging way. And I completely agree. Like, we also have a quite like a cute look and like a very friendly atmosphere. We try to keep it as way as well in like the community Discord. And we did notice a big amount of people coming from Southeast Asia as well. We are with the team a bit distributed, but no like core team members are from Asia. And I think it might be good to maybe get your view on it. Like, what are the key differences between like Chinese or Southeast Asia and Western communities? And how can we, like, what things should we watch out for to like properly engage everyone?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, and I think if you want to like looking at the Asian market, I think some my experience can be I think firstly like yourself to maybe show up in the local Discord channel or local Telegram groups is pretty important. Just like say hello, and that will express that you think this community or this market is important to you, and they love to know that. Yeah, and also this is what I do in the Japanese and the Korean community. Yeah. And another thing is maybe find some partners in the local market, like in the Southeast Asian as a DEX. So the wallet is very important to us because they are the portal of the traffic, right? So we will find some like a local traffic portal and to find some partnership with them, like a local medium and the wallet. Yeah. So for Southeast, we keep our contacts with Coin98. That is a Southeast crypto wallet and also community. Yeah. And another thing you can do is some local KOL. Yeah. But you may keep cautious that there are many people that you cannot trust. They just want to make money from you, right? Because you have your marketing budget. Yeah. So maybe maybe you need to spend some time to work with them and to see if they is really a trusted guy, and to like present your project in their community. Yeah. So I think in every market, it's just like a very quick thing that you need to spend some time to see the guys that you work with, like the ambassadors, like the influencers, if you really like can have the trusted partnership with each other. Yeah. And the different thing with other market, I think, is I think trust is always the most important thing. Yeah. And compared to other market, maybe not many people, they love to hold the tokens in a very, very long term. but I think for DeFi is a little different because people are educated that the strategy should be find the undervalued assets and hold it. Yeah, so I think in this level, all of the investors in DeFi are the similar. Yeah, most people believe in this strategy. Yeah, so I think the important thing is build the trust. Yeah, from yourself and your team with the local influencers and the some partners. Yeah.
Fantastic, great. Other questions, guys? Arnav, I saw you turn on your video, so or who?
Yeah. I can.
Arnav, so you're going to go first. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Arnav, and then Mike, go for it.
Yeah, sure. So I had a question for Dai as well. So basically, I want to know about like how your community initiatives changed over time, like while before launch and then when you launched and then now. Ideally, I'd like to know like in the early days because we are also at a similar stage. And yeah, about us, we are building basically a NFT fractionalization protocol. So.
Cool.
So
yes, sir.
Yeah, basically, so in the early days, like for example, did you do some sort of made some interesting memes, had some sort of advocate programs, like where the community itself, does some initiatives, and like now after launch, did you maybe move more towards token like liquidity mining and stuff like that to build a community? And then also, how did you like reward contributors in the initial days and then even after launch? Like, how did you try to keep the community engaged and incentivize people to promote like Dodo themselves instead of like the team doing it? Yeah.
So your question is basically around the different strategy before the project launch and after the project launch. Okay, got it. I think before the token launch, we didn't. It's very short because we got this PMM idea in May and we built the beta version in August and launched the token in September. So it's really like a race, very quick. Yeah, and so before the token launch is basically the educational article on PMM. We keep stress that this is a totally innovative thing. It's because the old image of Chinese projects, people think they just do copycats. They won't have built their own new technology. So what we are trying to say, okay, this time we have to build something totally different and totally we created ourselves and we created our own, and it's totally innovative and has great potential. Yeah. And also before the token, we launched the liquidity mining thing. So this is very popular back then, right? Yeah. So when you launch the liquidity thing, I think we are kind of the first that before we launch the token, but we launch the liquidity mining thing. Say that we will calculate your numbers, and then you will get the token rewards based on the contribution of your liquidity before token launch. Yeah, that's even before other projects launch their tokens to their old users. Yeah, and so on that have really tracked a lot of traffic. And after the token launch, I think a very important thing is keep it's a regular thing that you show up in your community, so your investors will feel comfortable. Okay, you are still work, and things are going on, and you show up. So I always think the founder engagement is pretty important. So in our team, basically it's me to always show up, and the other two guys, they do coding things and BD things. So, and maybe in your team you can find a man or a woman, right, to keep this image that so the community will link this person with your project. And maybe it cannot be the founder, but it should be in the core team, I think. And in this stage, what we are focused on the community building is more local market. So now, like, we spending to spending more to US, to Japan, to Korea, Spanish, and the other community. What we do is we find some local guys to organize the Telegram, Twitter, and the social media. And we translate the language very carefully, not just Google Translate. So they will feel that we respect their culture and language. And then we do some marketing campaigns with these local community members. I think it works. And also for me, the Twitter, it's not me manage the Dodo Twitter account. Is the we have a English as his first language guy to manage it. So you won't feel like it is strange or something, because this is local people manage local things. So I think before the project launch, it's very important to show the most important points of what kind of people you are and what kind of characteristic in your team. So the label that I want to put in the Dodo team is, even though we are Chinese, but we are doing something innovative. And after the token launch, I think it's important to have local people to manage your different local community, but the founder in a very high level keep show up yourself at a regular time.
Fantastic, awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Dai Dai. Mike, I know you also had a question. So
sure.
Go ahead.
Just have to say, like, I was very honored and I was very surprised to meet you here. I was a Dodo fan since like September last year, and I still hold Dodo. Haven't sold any from the liquidity mining since last September. And I just like to I think this question for both like Vivek and Diane is like, I think like for in my community, it's like I got a lot of requests from community members to have like separate chat for, let's say, like in like Spanish chat, Japanese chat, or like a Chinese group, right? But to be honest, like I don't we got a lot of this request, but like I don't really know what might be the best way to actually manage the such Telegram group, like to convey the same information to like every group in like different language. And just I want to ask you, like, what might be a practical way to actually, like, if you have a lot of just introduce a little bit about my project. So I'm a CEO of Apeboard. We are building like cross-chain DeFi dashboard, and we have like user from different demographics, and like it usually kind of want to request like to have like a separate Telegram group, but I don't know how would like we effectively manage that. So just want to like ask you with like what might be some tips on getting that rolling.
Maybe I can speak firstly. So I think it depends on which stage your project is. Like, so may I know that, like, which stage you are in?
Yeah, so we got the product running, and like we got around like 30K daily active users. Yep. So
Sure.
pretty much like I don't know what to say, but like it's like ongoing product, but we haven't launched the token yet. Yep.
Yeah. I think you should do different things based on how much resource and especially human resource you have. So if it is like an initial phase, you should focus on your product, and you just need a small group of people. They are the seed users, and they always love to use the beta of every version that you launched. So this kind of people is the most important part of your community, rather than other random people, right? And about the different language thing, I think if you are in a very early stage, I don't think you need to worry about that. Like check your marketing stuff. Like if you only have one person or two or three people, I think maybe you just focus on one language, or see what kind of people background you have in your team. Like in our team, founders are Chinese, but we have very close team members. They have native English culture background, so he can manage the Twitter things on the first day. And we have two people, they are Japanese Chinese, so they can manage the Japanese community at the first day. So if you have some similar team member, they can do multiple languages, then let them do it. If you don't have, I think you don't need to worry about it, because you have your seed fans, right? That is the most important thing other than language. And you just keep building, and like when you have 20 people, I think you can manage one more language. And when you have 40 people, okay, you can hire a very a bigger marketing group, and to manage multiple language, and even pay agencies. They can take care of the translation things, and you have some guys to verify, or you can have some local files to verify if their translation is right or not right, something like this. Yeah, so I think you don't need to over worry about that. Just quality is quality more than quantity. Yeah, and it also depends on your human resource.
Agreed. Quality over quantity. I just put a link to the guide, Mike, that we use. So maybe you could check that out. Just makes sure that people who are doing the translations understand the kind of bar that you're looking for.
I see. Yeah, looking through the guides, like look pretty good. Yeah, thanks, Vivek. And another question I have is about like I think like to tap on like the quality of communications, right? Sometimes like I feel that like for the projects, if we don't we try to communicate with the communities like every day or two, right? By like posting new integrations, or just like some memes, some like news we find interesting from the communities. But like we find it like sometimes like on the weekend, right? Like people rest, and we see like, hey, why you guys not posting? Why you guys like not integrating new stuff? And I just want to like say, if we like leave for a while, and kind of like community kind of expect us to like tweet every day, and how can you like some sort of manage that like, hey, it's like weekend, and like we couldn't possibly like communicate with you on that sometime like that.
Yeah, I totally understand, because I have the same feeling that some founders, they just always stay on Twitter. They tweet really a lot of things, like in each hour they tweet something. So it's
Right.
like really crazy, right? I don't do this kind of things. Yeah, but I think what I am doing is bi-weekly Thursday morning, I will show up in our Discord and to answer the AMA to the community. And this is a habit, and the community respect my habits. So it's like we co-work. They know, they ask questions at that time, and I show up at that time. It's like yeah, it's like an agreement with me and the community. We respect each other. Yeah, and about the Twitter things, I think the Twitter world is not like 2 years ago. I very miss 2 years ago's Twitter because there are knowledge on Twitter and the real questions. But nowadays it's because everyone know the skills, so everyone is sharing their tokens, their bags, and the founders are keep talking to present their tokens. So I think now Twitter maybe is not the best place. You can just take it easy to tweet what is in your mind and share it with your audience. So I don't think you can less anxious about that. Maybe you can explore some new place. Yeah, maybe you have your own blog, and then maybe you can have some I don't know, maybe chat room in the social media that you like. I think it's not a must that you do your personal Twitter here, but the official Twitter, yes, you should be active, because it is true that whenever you tweet something, there will be some followers, but just take care. You should always tweet something that share the same style with your team. Yeah, so people feel comfortable. Yeah, but I think if your stage is pretty early, you don't need to worry too much, because it is you doing your own project. They are just suggestions. It's still up to you. So I always believe that after a long time, people will feel the character of the project will have a similar character of the team and of the founders. So you should be confident. All of ours should be confident of ourselves to put our things that we liked to the community, and yeah, and they will like it finally, because the people that don't like it, they are not will be eventually stay in your community. I think it's just like making friends. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's my answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Be confident. Yeah, you will make it. Yeah, and you are doing dashboards, and it's very useful in the ecosystem. So I think it's easier than other kind of protocols to make partnerships, because whenever you list a new token, a new chain, you can always tweet about it. Whenever you find some interesting data, you can tweet it. Whenever you like make some comparison to compare some projects in some levels, in some metric, you can tweet it. So actually about the content, dashboard really have a lot of things to content. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It just feel like the community is like very demanding, and if we stop posting, it's like for a day or two, it's like, hey, where are you guys? Like, why it's like a lack of communication? Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I think meme is really natural things. It's not that you can fake it to say, wow, it is very popular of your community. It's not like that. It's really natural things. So just let it be, and it will be. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Vivek, did you want to add anything to that? Maybe as a last point before we close?
I think it was great. Let it be, and it will be, because you want to build your own habit that is right for you. And Mike, you want to enjoy the process. The more that you enjoy the process, your personality will come out, and that will be the best result for all. So not much more to add.
Awesome. Thank you. Great.
Thanks, Vivek.
Well, we are a little bit over time, and so I also want to be mindful and respectful of the fact that it is quite late for Dai Dai. It is like super early for Vivek. So, thank you again, Dai Dai, Vivek. Thank you so much for making the time. Very insightful. Thanks a lot for sharing about your journey, sharing about the I guess the two of the many sides of community and community building. Feel free to leave your Twitter or any other handle where people can follow you and get in touch with you. But again, thank you so much for this. And and then for everybody else, if you didn't get a chance to ask questions today, then feel free to get in touch with them. I guess on Twitter maybe it's the best place, and and ask them your questions. So thanks again, and we'll see you all again soon.